So welcome to Live from our living room this evening. This is our third episode, and tonight we have a very special guest, Ali Dowling, who many of you may know from Stairway Church. Ali is a singer and songwriter and is part of our worship team as a worship leader and singer. And tonight she's going to be talking to us about prophetic worship, which is going to be amazing. It's a really meaty topic, so we won't get to cover everything tonight, but I think you're really going to love the things that we do have to talk about. So don't forget that as the conversation's going, you can add some questions in, add some comments, and I'll be referring to those as we go through, and we'll definitely leave some time at the end for some questions as well. So without further ado, welcome Ali. Hello, Ali.
Ta-da. Hello, everyone.
How are you doing? How are you doing this evening?
I'm good. I mean, I'm excited because for us, this is a glorified hangout. We were just saying that before. So it's just nice to connect with you and everyone else watching.
It is. We've done many of these in isolation. It's great.
We certainly have. We're all pros.
So tonight we're going to be Tonight we're going to be talking about prophetic worship. But before we get started, I'm just wondering if you can tell us a little bit about your journey as a worshipper and a worship leader.
Yes. So, my journey as a worshipper will never end until I get to heaven, and then I'll continue worshiping. So, for me, worship. I honestly was, from a young age, was really brought into worship. Is that lagging on your end?
No, we're good. We're good. I'm just can't see the comments without getting the audio.
Okay.
This is going well.
Oh, good. We got this. We got this, girl. So, young age, I went to a church when I was young with my parents, and I remember seeing a woman on stage singing on the piano and worshipping, and gosh, I probably would have been like 6, and something in me completely sparked. And for me, worship has become a real cornerstone of my life. It is something at the age of 6 that really sparked within me, and I knew that the Lord was calling me to do something like that with my life, but I didn't quite know the extent of it. If we fast forward years, I remember sneaking into my brother's room. He had a really cool sound system, and he was off working. He was doing an apprenticeship, and I would put every Hillsong album in that CD player with the big headphones on, and I would pretend to lead people in worship. And I mean, we're talking like songs like Stone's Been Rolled Away and
yes,
I Got Friends in High Places. You remember that? Like,
I sure do.
Every song. Yeah. And I just remember being so caught up in the room by myself and just like, honestly, just pretending and leading people in worship that weren't even there. So I knew that from a really young age that there was something in me to lead people in worship. And it's been, I guess, a journey for me. I've gone up and down in terms of my walk with the Lord. I left church probably at about 16 maybe, and then went out and experienced the world, as you do. And then rededicated my life to the Lord probably at about 19. And from that moment on, that was it for me. I knew that I wanted to pursue a life of worship, and prophetic worship, I know we're going to go there, was not till later on in the track, but worship in itself is just, I love it. I love leading people in worship. There's nothing more that makes me, like, honestly, that my heart sing when people encounter Jesus, especially in a worship service. It's just, I love it.
Yeah,
it's my greatest joy.
I love it. I love it. Quick side note, did you have a Darlene jacket when you started leading worship?
Yes, I did. And so it was that kind of like that weird material, like shiny almost. Like it was weird. Everyone did.
Everyone did.
Wore it.
It's how we, it's how we learnt.
That's how we
Okay. So maybe before we get on to prophetic worship, you can just elaborate for us a bit about worshipping, because there are almost infinite ways that you can worship, through painting and dancing and all those things. So can you unpack for us a bit about what it means to you to worship with music and through song?
I mean, sure. So coming together, obviously, I mean, a great scripture to go off is when two or more are gathered, there he is, and he abides in the praises of his people. So when we come together, we release an atmosphere of worship. We come with praise, we come with thanksgiving. We release into that atmosphere a really, I think, potent presence of him. And go back to your question before that. What
Yeah, so
the
just
difference between music and
talking about worshipping with song and with
do you
music.
mean
So
like
there's lots of different ways that we can worship God. So what
yeah.
makes it unique to worship him with music and song? Is it
Well, I think music crosses barriers that nothing else can. Like if you think about it breaks down walls that it penetrates into people's hearts where nothing else can get.
yeah,
I don't know about you, but I can be sitting in a car and listening to a song, and it's not even a Christian song, but I'll start like bawling my eyes out, like a Coldplay song. I mean, how many times have I experienced the Lord in a Coldplay song? Like, I think that music crosses barriers that nothing else can. It breaks down walls in people that nothing else can.
yeah,
And so when we come together in a worship sense, I think it tears down walls that maybe we've put up.
yeah,
And we can experience a greater level of who the Lord is,
yes,
just in music and in sound
yep,
and in song.
yep,
So obviously there's different ways of experiencing in art, and different creative ways, but I think music specifically really gets to the core of you. I know it certainly does for me. So does that kind of answer that?
yeah. No, that's great. That's great. And people's response to that music can be very different. And prophetic
Absolutely.
worship. Prophetic worship is just one element of when we worship. There's spontaneous worship and there's prophetic worship, and there's all
Yep.
different ways that we respond to God when we're worshiping him. So can you maybe unpack a little bit about the difference between prophetic worship to other types of worship?
Sure. So spontaneous worship. Um, That's a really easy one. I think out of the overflow of your heart, the mouth speaks. I think about that scripture. And
Yeah.
really, when you come together and you do spontaneous worship is just that overflow of worship. It's that thankfulness. It's the passion of your heart towards the Lord that just is flooding out and spilling over. And that's what spontaneous worship is. To give you an example, in a worship setting on it, like for a Sunday, you might sit in holy, holy, holy for ages, and then there'll be different expressions of
Yeah.
holiness. Holy are you, Lord, worthy are you, Lord. That's a spontaneous overflow of the heart. You're just letting that spill out.
Yes.
Prophetic is completely different to that. The way that I explain prophetic, because there's so many different arms of prophetic, and it's really, you could go in so many different tracks.
Yeah.
But for me to condense it down, prophetic for me is simply just encountering the love of Jesus and encountering what he is saying to you right in that moment. So it might be over a situation that you're facing, or it might be something that you're contending for. So
Yeah.
it's shifting your focus from what you're seeing and shifting it to what he is seeing and what he
Yes.
is saying over that. And so I find in a worship setting on a Sunday, you will often start in a spontaneous place, but very easily you can launch from that spontaneous place into a prophetic place. So let me unpack that for a second. Why? I think the Lord is extremely relational, and he wants to respond back to us. So when we come with our praise and our thanksgiving and our heart turned towards him, and then we give him the room to respond, he always wants to respond.
Yes.
So he'll respond by saying to you, hey, Sarah, this is what I see over you. This is what I'm seeing, for you
Yeah.
right now. So that's how it can sort of shift into a prophetic place. That's personal. There's also corporate prophetic, but I don't know if you want me to go down that kind of road. But that's kind of the difference between the two.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So when you are worship leading or when you're singing or ministering in some way, how do you approach a situation where you think it's going to be prophetic, or perhaps in the moment you get a prophetic word? How do you go about preparing for that? And then how do you respond when you feel called to do that?
Yeah. So Um,
Maybe start with, I gave you two
so
questions there, so maybe start with how you
yeah,
prepare.
how do I prepare?
Yep.
Okay. I think I have learned in my journey with the Lord, my one of the biggest things for me is my relationship with the Holy Spirit. So I have learned to listen to the still small voice. Um, and within that, I have also learnt that He is in me, He resides in me. And so if I step out in trusting that He's going to meet me, He always usually does. So for me, there's trust and risk involved in
Yep.
stepping out in the prophetic, but He always meets me in it. And I've also learned to not trust my feelings all the time. And what I mean by that is if I went off my feelings all the time and what I felt, I most likely would, well, often I probably wouldn't do it because I'm often not feeling much. I might just be sensing something. And so I've learnt to trust that sensing, learnt to trust the still small voice, and to lean into that when He's asking me. And I'm still growing in that. I mean, I think I'm growing in that every time I lead, is just learning to trust that He's going to meet me when I step out of the boat.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so that's probably how I prepare. How I prepare would be just my relationship with the Holy Spirit, just continuing that constant, like daily, just talking with Him, just
Yes.
listening to His small voice. What are you saying over this person? What are you saying right now?
Yeah.
So that's probably how I would prepare coming into it.
Yep.
And then I have learned in it, when I'm in it, I've learned to be malleable in it. So being malleable in the moment. So I might come prepared with a sense of something, but He might be saying, you know what, today I want to go after this.
Yep.
So I've learned to be malleable in the moment and to move with Him when He's moving. And I think that only comes from relationship with Him.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and so for people who are
is that it?
watching,
Yep.
yeah, no, that's great. So for people who are watching at home, and don't forget, audience, you can ask your own questions as well. But I just want to ask one on the audience's behalf. So, if someone is new to worship leading or has been worship leading for a while, but potentially hasn't tried to move in the prophetic before and are feeling nervous or anxious about that, is there some sort of advice you would give to them about, stepping out for the first time and, as you said, having that trust that if you take the risk, God is going to be there and He's going to use that moment?
Yeah. Firstly, I think, and I would hope and pray that you're in an environment where it's safe enough to do so within your own church. I mean, I'm so lucky within our Stairway Church that we have the environment where we can step out and do
Yeah.
risky things. So I would say, obviously, honor what your church is wanting to do. But when you are learning to step out, you've got to be okay with not falling flat on your face, but you've got to be okay with knowing that regardless of whether you feel like it's, let me take this example. I am a mum of three girls, and my two twins, my twins at the moment, they're learning to walk. And so particularly Frankie, she's getting up on her legs and she's, taking that step and she's moving forward, and then she'll fall down
Yeah.
flat on her face. And my response to her is not, well, you didn't get it. My response to her is, you got this, babe. Come on, let's do it again. And I feel like that's the Father's response to us when we do anything like stepping out in the
Yes.
prophetic
That's
or
great.
doing something risky,
Yeah.
because His response to us is, if we fall flat on our face, which I have done many a time, is not, oh, you didn't get it, so don't bother doing it again. His response is, let's do it again. You've got this, babe. Let's
Yeah.
do it again. And so I would say you've got to learn to trust yourself, because the kingdom of heaven resides in you. I said it before. And if you can believe that if you can believe what he says about you, then you're brave enough to change, to know that you can change the world.
Yeah.
And I just think that you've got to take the step. It always is the trust and the risk. It's stepping out. And if you can do that, then he will always meet you. He'll always meet you, regardless of whether it falls in a heap. I mean, gosh, I could give you a great example. And this is, I just think, the graciousness of the Lord. So I was recently ministering at a church, and right beforehand, I felt like I had a name. I was like, there was this name running around. There was a Catherine. There was a Catherine that I had to sing over prophetically. So I'm on stage and I'm having this internal, I don't want to do it, Lord, I don't want to do it. And then I'm like, I'm going to do it. So I step out and I go, is there a Catherine here? Is there a Catherine in the room? And you could have heard crickets. It was just, there was no one saying anything. It's tumbleweeds. And I'm like, oh, Catherine. And then bless their hearts, people were trying to help me. There's a Kate, or there's someone with a second name, Catherine. And I'm like, okay, oh Lord. Anyway, then a girl, it was just internally I'm like, I'm falling in the heap, but I'm like, okay, get this together. And then a girl runs up to the front. She's like, I have an auntie called Catherine. And I was like, you know what? What's your name? And she's like, my name's Candace. And I was like, Candace, tonight is your night. You're going to get a prophetic word. And so I just got her up on stage, and, I took a moment for myself to get centered. And I was like, Lord, you got to come through. And I was like, what's your heart for her, Lord? What's your heart for her? And he's so gracious. And I sang a song over her, and internally I was like, I don't know if that meant anything to her. Gosh, that was it was dismal. But she got off and she was rocked by it and just was like, thank you so much. You have no idea what that means. And I just think the Lord is so honoring, is that I stepped out. I may have got it wrong. However, it turned out for great anyway, because worlds was rocked, and the Lord spoke to someone anyway. And I think it's just such a great example of, even if we step out and even if we fall flat on our face, he's so gracious to be like, it's okay, we got this. But it's just all about stepping out, trusting that he'll meet you in it. I hope that answers that question. You just got to do it. You just got to do it.
It's great. So I think, you said yourself, you're still on a learning journey, and I'm sure that many of the people watching will be as well.
I don't think you ever get there in the prophetic. I think it's you're constantly being called to go higher. I mean, absolutely. It's a vulnerable place, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So on that journey that you're on, can you tell us about some people or some experiences that have really influenced your prophetic and taught you a lot and really encouraged you along the way?
Yeah. So I probably someone that really sparked the prophetic or in me was I went to the Florida outpouring. I think I may have been 26 or 27 years old. Yeah. And for those that don't know, it was just this kind of revival that kind of broke out in Florida for a while there. It was amazing, incredible healings. And just, so I got to go over there, and I was already worship leading, but for the first time, there was a girl that was on stage called Catherine Mullins. Yeah. And she did this prophetic act in worship. She got there were all these people that needed healing, and she got these letters that were on the table of all these people that needed healing. She threw them on the floor, and then she danced on them. And for me, in that moment, it shook me up, because I was like, okay, worship is not just about 4 songs and getting off the stage. What she did in that moment, I mean, it was a prophetic act of dancing on top of the healings. And it really sparked something in me that I can experiment in worship, and I can do things in worship and that don't look like a normal 4-set worship service. But the Lord actually is going to use moments in worship to free people. And so she really was the first person that I saw do something really different. And then I guess another person would be Misty Edwards. She goes off and does lots of prophetic kind of songs. within her worship, and I used to love listening to her. But really the person that probably flourished it the most within me was Roma Waterman. She was our worship pastor for a while, and she's extremely prophetic. And she was able to pull that out of me so much. And by how she did that was she just gave me room and services to just experiment.
Yeah.
And so I just am so thankful for her for actually pulling that out of me more. But I just love being around prophetic culture and prophetic people. And I think that's how you learn more, is just being around people who are in that kind of sphere.
Yeah.
And operating in that way.
Yes. It's great. We've had a question, and it's sort of similar to something that I was pondering as well. So, can you tell us a bit about how you go about moving in the prophetic, particularly when you're ministering with someone else, like perhaps a preacher, or with a whole band? And you obviously have lots of people then that are moving in the prophetic together. So, how does that work? How do you try to work together as a team or as a partnership?
Yeah. I think it comes back to my statement that I said before about being malleable in the moment. When you are working, like, we are all part of the body. And so when you're working on stage with everybody, we all have a part to play.
Yep.
And so again, like, I might come with an idea of what I want, but for instance, in a service, there might be something just really on the drums that night. There might be something really about the rhythm, about the beat. And so I've learnt to lean on the people that I'm on stage with. And I think that also comes with relationship. It's really great to be in relationship with people that you often are doing worship with, because you kind of create this safety net together, and you can explore spaces together. And lean on each other in moments. And so I've learnt to really lean on other team members. If I'm feeling like a real rhythm, like there's something in the beat, there's something in the moment, I'll lean on Morgan, who might be drumming that night, and just allow him to explore spaces by giving him the room to do so. So not singing all the time, but just kind of backing off and allowing him a moment to breathe.
Yes.
Or I might feel something on the guitar. And so it's about being malleable in that moment and really listening to the Holy Spirit, what he's saying, and kind of just moving where he's moving, because he's always moving. So it's just like, he's unchanging, but he's moving. So where is he now? Is he on the guitar? Is he in the song?
Yeah.
Is he? So it's just about kind of, moving to and fro together and doing the dance. Doing a dance.
It's good.
Doing the prophetic dance.
I like it. Okay, so I've got one more question. So just a last shout out to the audience. If you have any questions, please type them in. So sort of along that similar vein of things that have influenced you, are there any books that you've read or speakers whose videos you've watched that you would really encourage our audience to watch or to read if they want to explore prophetic worship in more detail?
Prophetic worship. I mean, she's not prophetic worship, but I love anything by Nicole Nordman. That girl, the way that she articulates just worship and music. I think I read it yearly, twice a year, it's called A Love Story by Nicole Nordman.
Yep.
And it's about different books of the Bible. And she then writes a song for every kind of story at the end. I just love her articulation and how she takes stories from the Bible and just puts them into song. In terms of like prophetic, I mean, I don't have worship people. I have James Goll, who I adore. He is like a kooky old prophetic man who I love, and sings like he like goes off on tangents and sings. He's come to Stairway before, and some people would know him, but he's like, he lives in a different dimension, and I just love hearing how he talks about the prophetic and what, how to kind of live from that dimension.
Yes.
So I would say probably him. And I love listening to Steph Gretzinger. I mean, she goes there probably more than a lot of other people that I know, just kind of goes into that spontaneous place and then often brings a prophetic song. So I love watching her too. Yeah.
Awesome. Love it. I will add my own little message to the audience for that. If you do want to know more about prophetic worship or you want to join in with prophetic worship experiences, I do encourage you to follow Stairway Music if you're not already, and Stairway Church.
I should have said Stairway Music.
It's okay, I've got you. And so follow us because we regularly have services that you can attend.
Yes.
When those things are enabled again, but also we share them online and we'd love you to join us. Also, if you're interested in hearing more about Ali and also her husband Joel and their ministry, follow Joel and Ali Dowling. They regularly do live worship that you can tune into as well. And also, if you're really interested in the prophetic, Stairway Church partners with Gary and Sarah Morgan and School of Prophets, who do an incredible job, particularly if you are wanting to learn more and experience more in the prophetic. So I encourage you to check out those things as you continue on this lifelong journey of learning about the prophetic. So I think
it is a lifelong journey.
It sure is. So I think we've covered off all of our questions for this evening. So Ali, I'm going to finish with our fast 5 favourite questions. So are you ready to answer 5 quick questions?
Okay. I hope I can do it fast enough for you. I'm a verbal processor. This sucks.
What is your favourite holiday that you've ever been on?
My favourite holiday? Oh gosh, I should say my honeymoon, but it's not. It's probably, I got to spend 3.5 weeks in New York like, if anyone knows New York, in Chelsea, in like right in the rich area, in my own apartment. For 3.5 weeks, I had a doorman and I paid $50, and it was at Christmas time, and it was wild. It was incredible. It was like, I don't know how that happened. It was the Lord. So that was probably my favorite holiday. And I was just with a bunch of mates, and we just had 3.5 weeks there. It was wild.
Sounds awesome.
That's my favorite holiday.
What's your favorite TV show?
Okay. Oh, TV show. Oh gosh. Probably New Girl.
New Girl. I love that show. Okay. What is your... Who's that girl?
I should say something like Handmaid's Tale, but I'm just working. Yeah, no, New Girl.
What's your favourite type of takeaway?
Okay, takeaway. I love Vietnamese. I do love Vietnamese.
Yep.
It's good.
It's good. What's
Thank you, Dowling, for showing me that.
What's your favourite song to dance to on the dance floor?
Oh, anything by Whitney in the early years.
That's good.
I mean, Queen of the Night, Whitney. Ooh, come on.
Yes.
I'm the Queen of the Night.
And you are when you're on the dance floor. And what's your favourite thing?
That was a hard one. I mean, there's so many, but yeah.
What's your favourite thing about being at home?
Oh, gosh. What's my favourite thing about being home? You know, this is a really interesting time in life, and I don't think that we'll ever get this moment again to just be like insular and with your family. And I'm really enjoying just the 5 of us just hanging out daily, being with each other. And I really hope that my kids like take away really great memories from this moment. I know they're only little, but just the fact that we've been able to be with each other, you know, daily, and just we've been taking walks together. We never did that, but to get out, we've just been taking walks together and connecting with Joel again, just like communicating with each other on a different level, because we're forced to. I just kind of, not that we're forced to, you know what I mean, because we're home every day. Yeah. But I'm just really enjoying this time together. I don't think we'll ever get it again. I hope we won't ever get it again. I'm just kind of just enjoying the family time. I'm sure everyone is, but I really am. It's quite beautiful.
That's great. And we've just got one more question that's come through, and I want to make sure we don't leave anyone out. Yeah. So when you're picking songs for a service, which is and it's prophetically minded, or you think it's going to be a prophetic service, do you pick songs based on the lyrics or the feel, or how do you go about that?
That's a good question. Yes-ish. when I'm preparing for like a Sunday set, and I'm just talking to the Lord that week, I'll often put on worship at home. And if there's a song that's kind of really resonating with me at home and I'm really worshiping to it and I'm feeling stuff on it, I'll usually bring that into a Sunday. Um, that's kind of how I sort of pick my sort of songs. I wouldn't say that I will only pick it from lyrics or that kind of thing if he's really speaking to me about a theme. So he might be speaking to me about being soaked or saturated in his presence, or and he wants to saturate people in his presence over the weekend when we get together. So I might pick like torrential love or something like that,
Yeah.
to come together, just to kind of help really embody that theme. But I would say I more go off when I'm at home. I'll put on like a worship song, and I'll really get a sense of, like, if I'm really worshiping to it, then I can actually come into a Sunday and be like, woo, let's go.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. If it resonates with me, then I can bring it in on a Sunday and we can go. Like, I can lead people in it. It's got to resonate with me. I find it really difficult to worship lead songs that don't resonate with me, not because they're bad songs, just because I really need to attach myself to something and run with it. That's probably the tenaciousness in me. And so if I'm not resonating with something, then it's really hard for me to,
Yes.
for me, it's just going through the motions.
Yeah.
Which I never want to do in worship. I always want to, like, I just know that the Lord is there to be experienced. He wants to have, a conversation with us. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for answering that last little question.
You're
Alrighty.
welcome.
Well, Ali Dowling, it's been great to have you live from our living rooms. Thank you so much for
from our
joining
living
us.
rooms.
Yes, from
You are
everyone's
welcome.
living rooms. To everyone, we will see you again in 2 weeks, where my very special guest is Jared Grant. In the meantime, stay safe,
Yes,
stay well, and we will be back in 2 weeks. Bye.